fact, none of you worked on Pizzagate with me, so I had to join the 3% white nationalist militia. It is a huge threat. I see them in Ohio. They are heavily armed. They are at the Capitol, and we should be afraid. They know how to motivate them, and they're not really stable people. But occasionally, a very stable but hurricane force, John Brakey, comes into our state and sponsors lawsuits and meets with election officials and is very straightforward. So I've known John really since 2004. Loves to call himself an election transparency activist for more than 20 years. He's co-founder and director of AuditElectionsUSA.org, which I'm a member of. And
thank you, Bob. You know, me and Bob go back a long ways with a lot of other great people in this room right here. And I'm glad to be back here after 2 years. You know, the last couple of years I've been in 14 states, and my God, what you learn when you're traveling around this country to realize how dysfunctional our election system is. Almost like my computer right now not working right, okay? And we seem to be getting that. And you know, with Lori, I feel the same way that you do, okay? I'm not liking what I see. I've been doing this for 15 years now, okay? I'm a proactive person, okay? I go out and you know, I'm a frontliner, meaning that I'm on the front lines and I'm seeing what's going on. And so, as he's getting this thing ready, I'm just going to keep talking a little bit, give some time here. Sorry for these difficulties. You know, I've been running around. Let me, I don't know why the other one worked, and all of a sudden this one's having a problem. I'm John Brakey. I'm the director of Audit Arizona, which has now changed in the last couple of years to become Audit USA. We've learned from experience that it's necessary to work elections proactively, and that's what we do. We believe it's very important to get in front of all of this. My goodness, I can't believe it's doing all this. What's that? We're close. Oh, we're close. So it'd be a lot nicer if I had my presentation. Yeah. Thank you, Train. Train and me spent 2 weeks together in North Carolina, and I can tell you right now, spending 2 weeks with me after you get done, you deserve to get a T-shirt. It says, "I survived John Brakey on a mission." Because definitely, you know, working in North Carolina and finding somebody as gifted as Lynn Bernstein, an actual rocket scientist who understands this stuff, is, you know, quite a nice situation. It really is. And then to be able, you know, later today we're going to have a presentation of my good friend Emily Levy. And I think her presentation is going to be very, very important because we want to put the act back in activism. To be an activist means to act, okay? We're not professors. We're not trying to, you know, put peer pressure out on each other. We're trying to open doors to get people in to go ahead and make change. Oh, we're getting close. We got a screen working here, huh? Well, it's coming. Hey, we did it. How about that? Okay, let's get this thing rolling. Thank you, Train. Okay. Why we must be proactive before an election, not reactive. Audit USA is an acronym that stands for Americans United for Democracy, Integrity, and Transparency Election. We're a group that's been around a long time. Our mission in 2004 has been the same as it is today. We work to ensure that the fundamental right of American citizens to vote and have each vote counted as intended in a secure, transparent, impartial, independent audit election process. Wow. I don't think we got such high ideals. I think that's what democracy is based on having happen. But we live in a country, and then when I'm out there, I have to go out and publicly speak and meet people and say, hey, you know, for our democracy to recover, we the people must understand and address 3 major issues. I got a 4th one in North Carolina that I'll get into. Election fraud, voter suppression also done by micro-targeting, like Emma was talking about, how they psychologically get in our heads. And then, of course, the big one that Steve Rosenfeld has written a lot about is gerrymandering, how devastating it is to what happens out there, and how we have to learn to go ahead and fight these things. We see transparency as the solution. You know, this is not a complex problem that we have. And we've learned from experience that it's necessary to work proactively, not reactively. It's easier to prevent a stolen election than to catch one afterwards. As Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And that's what we're trying to apply to the system out there. And I want to go into different ways this can be done. Because, definitely, I work with lawyers. They seem to be always my best friends, okay? After 15 years of experience and many election cycles working with two great election attorneys, election attorneys who specialize in this, and now working with Chris Sauter in Washington, D.C. for the last 3 years, we have built a rearview mirror of knowledge learned on the front lines of elections in this country. Attorney Chris Sauter is a nationally recognized expert in post-election process. He authored the book, The Recount Primer, 1994, considered the definitive guide to election disputes. We've been in from Maine to Florida. Chris has been involved in almost every major recount notable since 2000, where he was in Florida and told them not to do the dumb thing they did. He told them to count the whole state, and they did. He ran the Al Franken recount, $15 million. And so those are the kind of lawyers, and here's a picture of Chris. I want you to know, Chris started his first campaign. He worked for Robert F. Kennedy. He just turned 70 years old, and he's turned this into a mission with us. Chris's perspective when he first got into this thing, he saw things from the top down. People like me and Emily and Lulu and Karen and others who are on the front line, and we see things from the bottom up. They don't treat us the same way that there's some famous professor coming in, how they honor and obey. They see us as gadflies, okay? And, on that. This is Chris just before Obama left office. He worked on his campaign and was his first election attorney, and really the big one for the whole thing. We know that politics is a game of fear. Those who do not have the ability to fight power elites do not succeed. The platitude about justice, equality, democracy are just that. They're goddamn platitudes, I'm sorry to say. Only when the ruling elites become worried about survival do they react. Appealing to the better nature of the powerful is useless. They don't have one. Chris Hedges, he's right on. We're no good unless they can look at it and say, oh gee, file a records request. If we don't answer, he's going to sue. Chris will not let me file a records request. He has me file it through other people. Because when we file it, it means we got a target on you, and we're coming after you. And we have a target on Florida. We're getting ready to file litigation in Florida, again, our second time. We got half the state preserving ballot images, the other half are destroying it. When I go into a state, and I work with, we really do 4 things when we go into a state. We investigate. After we got all the answers by putting a track condition report, then we educate, and then we advocate. And when I advocate, I usually put a little bit in of agitation. I find that's how you get the dirt out. And I can definitely be a pit bull with a smile and agitate you, okay? And play the game of civility, which is very important. Before we go into a state, Susan Pinchot investigates by doing a statewide detailed track condition report. When we go into an election department, we already know most of the answers to what is going on. Now we want to see how honest they're being, because a lot of times they'll give you set answers because most people don't speak the language of geek elections. It takes a geek to understand the geek Greek language of elections, and it makes it very tough. So we go in and we evaluate, and the style that I go into is, I'll go into a little later, but I want to tell you where we've kind of moved on with this thing. In Arizona in 2016, we had a legal fight that opened my eyes up, okay? The digital ballots images are public records, and ballots are election material under the law. And the digital ballot images, rather than the paper ballots, are tabulated by the vote scanner. Therefore, digital ballot images must be preserved in the chain of custody. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of this a little later. What that leads, when I find out that you're destroying this stuff, is that first off, they're mandated by law to follow the law. Now, that's a mandate. If you're not following the law, and I've instructed you, and I've gone to you and say, hey, Charlie, we disagree. And, I've explained to you that if it's generated in the chain of custody, you must preserve, you must save these, okay? And so what we filed is a writ of mandamus. It's a very simple act. We try not to get into complicated long-term court cases. You could say that we're really bad people, because what we do is that we ask them to follow the law. No more, no less. It's a simple case. We file a case, writ of mandamus with an injunction stopping them from doing something that could be harmful to we the people. And we get into court very rapidly. Of course, they'll try every kind of little excuse to get you out or whatever and stop it. But in many cases it works. Many cases they kick you out because of a technicality. Our first case reported, we were kicked out because we sued in federal court, and believe it or not, the judge apologized, and he said that we were right, but we didn't have a right to private action. Only the feds could enforce there. But we had a good federal judge, we figured it was worth a try, we did it, and now we're getting ready to go back to now in state court to do the same thing. We've been in Alabama. Wow, what an election. Roy Moore. I want you to know after Roy Moore lost, he claimed that the ballot images would have proved that the election was stolen, but they destroyed them. We won that case in court in the morning. We were on our way from Montgomery, Alabama, and believe it or not, it's really interesting when you do your first case deep in the South, and you're in Alabama, okay, and all of a sudden you take a day off and you tour the area and you get the history, and then you go across that bridge, and you find out how discrimination worked, and you found out how people of color were abused, which is a whole story I'll get into a little later too, because I'm finding that when they go into these counties, it's like, why do they rob a bank? Well, because that's where the money is. I'm finding that, like, for example, when I was in Ohio with Bob, there was 15 counties that had digital images. Only 3 were destroying the images. It happened to be the 3 largest counties of color. You know what the other 12 counties said? Hey, this is pretty good stuff for auditing and adjudication. We don't have to open the boxes, because that takes almost a court order to do. We can go to the images and see, why was there 30% undervotes, like what Karen found out there? If there was images, they could have gone back and looked. But that was the old system. Optical scanners, they go down on a ballot, they see a dark spot, if it absorbs, that's how an optical worked, then that was your vote. Left no evidence behind. These new systems make a digital copy. So anyway, I'm just going to zoom by. Ohio, I touched it already because I'm running out of time already. Virginia, we negotiated with them. We got to go back and do more work. Maryland, wow, I was impressed. And Steve has written some great articles. I encourage people, because they do auditing with ballot images. If it's a close contest, and let's say you two are running against each other, they're going to call you in. They're going to say, hey, can I give you everything that you two can analyze, and then tell us what you want to do? And a lot of people, once they get this and they have a program to make it work, they can tell if they really won or really lost. And to me, that's important. Of course, images, as was said yesterday, can be gamed. But I want you to know ballots can be gamed too. I was in one election for 9 years that they changed out 30,000 ballots using ballot on demand. They took the ballot from Pima County, they disappeared for 6 weeks. We know they were fake because it was all the same paper stock. In this box, this kind of a ballot, only 1,100 ballots could fit in it. In the other box, they could fit 1,400 in it. Interesting, huh? What they did there. That's part of the games that are played. Florida, I mentioned what we're going to be ready to do there. North Carolina, wow. You know, that's a state, when I walked in there, I found a quadfecta of problems, like I was saying. The fourth problem of beyond election fraud, voter suppression, gerrymandering, blew my mind, because if you vote early in North Carolina, and we found out South Carolina, and we're hearing parts of Georgia, and maybe Texas, you don't have a secret ballot. 65% of the people who vote in a presidential election, they secretly put your name on the ballot. I walk around and say, hey, when you vote, do you know that they're secretly putting it? And they go, what? I didn't know that. They've been doing it for 10 years. How do they do this? Because they said, we'll give you same-day voter registration. But we want the availability in case somebody dies before election to pull their ballot out of the box. Or if they voted twice, they can do that. That is bad. It really is. Voting is a secret process. Counting is a public process. They told me, oh yeah, we're saving ballot images in North Carolina, but you can't have them because, see, we put a secret code on the ballot, and if you get those ballots, you might be able to tell people vote. Well, we investigated that. You'd have to give me the list, because the way it works is, the first day of voting, if your voter is 089, they'll put 089. And 089 is tied to your voter registration card. So if that list is available, they'll know how you vote. This is just hideous. North Carolina, there was basically, these are the stats before we got into the state. 47% of the state was already digital, 19.38 was optical using M100s, and then I found this hideous voting system that was thrown out of Florida. It was called the iVotronic. It's just amazing what came out of that. By the way, that's what they had in Ohio for a long time. And I remember being with the president of the NAACP, who's become a very good friend of mine, Lynn, because, you know, basically we go into a state coalition building is a very important part of what we do. And when I got to North Carolina, I didn't know anybody. But after I found these problems, I said, God damn it, I'm not leaving this state until I have a coalition, because this is incredible. Great state, good systems in most of the state. Yes, 2.7 million people were voting on push and pray voting machines that were thrown out of Florida in 2006 and 2007 from what happened there. And so that's where the coalition came together, and it worked very well to be effective in organizing. I was very fortunate to work, Andrea Miller was able to hook me up with a man named the Reverend Rodney Sadler, who's with Progressive Democrats of America. He's a lieutenant. I see you know him. He's a fabulous human being, just fabulous. And also Dr. Spearman. And also, it's just a blessing to work with the communities of color finally, because that's where I find in Broward County, when I was down there for that election, okay, you know, I seem to somehow get gravity pulling me to these bad spots, because that's the opportunity that we can learn and how to be better proactive. But what it really leads to is cynicism. And that's why this slide, we're jumping now to another subject, is that if not voting was a presidential candidate in 2016, they would have won by a landslide. Sadly, that's a very bad situation, okay? I think it's going to be a bigger turnout in 2020, but of course they're going to have ways to be able to stop. But when you think about it, when I accuse a lot of people who don't vote of belonging to what I call the Mark Twain Party. Now, what? Mark Twain Party? Mark Twain said over 100 years ago that if voting made any difference, they wouldn't let us do it, okay? And that's what I'm trying to work on changing. Because, you know, when I sat up here 2 years ago, I said, hey guys, by 2020 election, the way it looks to me, and I've been tracking digital for many, many years, that this country could be 80 to 85% digital, okay? Now, I did not count on a secret machine coming out that was very well head off their site when I talk about the Express vote, which Lynn's going to go into more, and you've heard more about. She's got a fabulous presentation. But it is awful that to know that they've pushed these machines out all across the country. Maryland, the whole state of, Delaware, the whole state of Delaware bought the XL, okay? They have no paper. It is a corporate state, and it's very easy to manipulate. We're looking at a political strategy, and a legal strategy, I should say, with Chris Sauter, is that he's saying, hey, they're taking the right of oversight. They're getting us to a machine, which, you know, Steve did some great interviews, and I hope I'm not leaking anything, but, you know, they call this machine the good son of the DRE, the direct recording electronic, okay? And we just see an ultimate disaster and manipulation that could be done, because hand-marked paper ballots are very important, because hand-marked paper ballots are hand-marked. And when you mark them, there's all different ways people mark. They become basically like a snowflake, okay? And so basically, we have to, and when we talk about propaganda, when Emma was talking about what's going on, I want you to know when ES&S is out there selling these machines, which me and Train got a lot of this on video, they would stand up and say, do you see this thing around the ballot? They said, that's a barcode. That's what they say. And then they'll say, we've been using these for years, so don't be afraid of the express vote. It's the same thing. It's not. The express vote ballot is not a ballot. It's a summary result. It's easily counterfeited. Hey, I was in an election that they reprinted 30,000 ballots using ballot on demand. Okay, it was a 9-year case. We had a confession how the whole thing was done. At the end of that case, they won the case by getting us booted out of the second round going through the court system, by saying that we wouldn't claim that they would steal in the future. Because it was a lot of years back. We built a new facility. And yes, we did some bad things back then, but that's all changed. Case dismissed. That's how it worked, because the judge said, well, if they did do it, what am I supposed to do? Crazy, huh? What a system. That's what we're trying to change. I'm quickly going to do a 2-minute rant here. Volkswagen. Wow. What did they teach us? Okay? A logic and accuracy test is when you take a bunch of these ballots and you pre-fill them out, and then you run through the machine and say, hey, they added up right. Okay? Well, Volkswagen invented a computer, and it sold, in this country, 580,000 cars, and I want you to know they passed emissions maybe 1.5 million, 2 million times over 10 years. Okay? And I want you to know that when these cars went in there, it plugged in, the computer knew that it was being tested. And it changed the timing on the engine and turned on the pollution controls. And it didn't cheat by 40%. It didn't cheat by 80%. It was 40 times over the limit. And it knew it had to be cheating because the back wheels weren't turning because they had a sensor built there. And when they put it in drive mode to see how it run under load, it was putting out data that was correct because it did tricks to do that, change the timing and turning on the pollution controls. I want you to know it led to, in Europe, they sold 11 million of these cars worldwide. In Europe, other companies were cheating, even General Motors building, when they're building diesels. And 72,000 people are dying prematurely. Volkswagen became the world's largest company, built a car company for a while, built on a lie. They claimed their car was better than the Prius. All of that stuff's there. Google it. It's fascinating. You know, between what Benny Smith helped me understand, fraction magic, and Volkswagen showed me how we can fool with logic and accuracy, because when I go into these election departments, I say to them, hi, my name's John Brakey. I'm here because I want to help more people to vote, because people are becoming very cynical, and they don't believe elections are real. That's my approach when I go in there. And I get a very good response, because they see that their county elections are down to 30–40%, their city elections are down to 8–12%, because like I said, a lot of people believe it doesn't really matter. And that's what we're trying to change. You never change things. The slide I used last time, I'm going to use it again. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Very famous man, Buckmaster Filler. Ballot images change that model, and that's why they're hiding or destroying them. Okay? But I want to point out something very important. The importance of ballot images. First off, there are those who claim that hand-marked paper ballot images could be hacked. Well, we say about it that hand-marked paper ballots could also be hacked. We know that hand-marked paper ballots could be manipulated if the chain of custody is not secure. And there are those who are concerned that ballot images could be hacked. However, here's the beauty of ballot images. It's redundancy. In Arizona, next year, we got our whole state serving. Me and Arlene have been waiting for a long time. Maricopa County has just gone digital. You know what that means? My state is 100% digital. What am I going to do when I get back and get geared up for Arizona? I'm going to make them put the inkjet back into the machine. What? An inkjet? You know what's that going to do? It's going to build a library. It will marry the ballot to the image. How about that? And that part of the solution that we need to work for is to prove that elections are real. Moving on here. In other words, the ballot images are part of the chain of custody and prevent manipulation of the paper ballot. A risk-limiting audit can be done to ensure that the ballot images are correct and reflect the ballot votes. The fact that ballots and ballot images protect each other add a layer of protection against hacking. My attorney and best friend, Bill Reisman, attorney for 50 years, an activist attorney, very well known in Arizona. Ballot images in most states are being destroyed because they're protecting the right to cheat now in future elections. We claim that ballot images are being destroyed because it's very hard to get at paper ballots. And thank you, Arlene. And what we have to do is to take away their impunity. How do we do that? Don't let them destroy them. File records requests, and we're going to be leading a campaign only really in swing states, if we can find the additional financing to do that, to be able to prevent that. As to the illegal destruction, I think this is really important. Some people like to say, hey, these ballot images are transient, they mean nothing. What the heck are you talking about? In summary, deleting ballot images significantly undermine the integrity of the election system that derives all its tabulation data from the images. What? Do you mean to tell me this ballot goes into the machine, it doesn't count the ballot, it counts the picture? Oh my God, that's a federal law now. Because if it's generated in the chain of custody, it can't be destroyed. So what am I doing? I'm filing mandamuses in states after I investigate. And I ask the judge, Your Honor, could you please order these people to follow the law? I'm a terrible person, aren't I? I mean, you know, it's pretty pathetic when you have to do this to remind it. And so that's kind of part of it. But I want to say this, fraction magic can change the vote totals on the fly. We know that. But it cannot change a hand-marked paper ballot. So what do? They make it very hard to get. Yeah, some professor can walk in, I'm a big-time professor, I want to do this. Oh, yes, sir, blah, 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 blah. Then he leaves, okay? They pay attention to it because they're somewhat afraid because the institution he belongs to and the power may be of credibility. I don't know. They're professionals. We want to change that. Understanding ballot images and related documents. 3 types of public records, okay? If you get the ballot image, which instantly, as a ballot goes into the machine, it takes a picture. If it's an 850 in a millisecond, it will recreate a cast vote record, and I'll show you that, what it looks like. And then when it gets to the central tabulator, it loads it into an LVR. I'm going to go more into that. And if you ever get this present, go to our site, you'll find a program that will teach you how ballot images work. And I'm just so pleased that Ray Lutz is here because he's going to really tell you some really exciting things which are happening in ballot image technology that Ray is working on. And once again, how we can make elections transparent, trackable, and publicly verified. What you're looking at is something that I thought was specially made for us in 2015. Because of the lawsuit that I was in 2007, where I had the honor of hitting the famous Merle King, a real sleazeball, okay? I mean, after he came in, he said, gee, I bought my own way here, and they only gave me a donation of $10, because my integrity's that high. After my lawyer got done with him, I was surprised that Pima County said, could you please give us back the $10? Okay? Because he came in with this crazy notion that if we got the databases, maybe mayhem, chaos would break out, possibly worldwide. Wow, what a defense. We made a movie about it called Fatally Flawed. Getting back to this, this is a cast vote record that we call a list of vote records. And if you look at column 3, okay, is that this is a primary. And I want you to know, column A ends at column HH, because we have in our place an insane amount of ballot styles. In a primary, we could have 2,000 different types because of fire districts and all sorts of stuff. We've got a pretty complex ballot. We do manage to get it down to just back, front, and back, although. And you're looking at something that we call the list of vote records. And that right there, one row is everything that you vote. Everything. Okay? In the old D-Vote system, I spent thousands of hours on that. It was a Microsoft Access, and there's files up here, files down there. It was just incredibly bad, and to see that this is the basis, and this came out of the next generation after 2004 that kind of laid out how these things are supposed to work, so they really simplified it. I guess the EAC did something right to have this part happen. Okay, when you get an image, if you look at the top here, you're going to see 4-3-I. I is for image. 483C is a cast vote record, okay? These things are made instantly. Like I said, the 200, it's a millisecond that it's made. On a DS200, it's a lot slower. It takes about maybe 6 to 8 seconds. You'll see the ballot go to the machine. I can show you a video, but I haven't got time. And the ballot stops, the clock clicks, that's made the cast vote record. If it's good, it will go in the box. If it's bad, we'll send it back out to you and say, hey, do you want to correct a mistake? Okay? Once you get this, and if you look at this, there's the image, there is the cast vote record, and there's the list of vote records, is that through friends of mine and Emily, we were able to go ahead and have somebody build us a little program that would load the images and load the cast vote record right into these databases, that this LVR. because then you could go ahead and then analyze, like for example, right here, 483I, if I click on it, will come on an image. I'm not live, I can't do that. And then I can click on 483, and I want to see if U.S. Representative Representative Neal won, or did the governor's race, which is right there, or Rick Ashley. I can examine those. With Ray's help, we're going to be able to do it faster. Okay? That is an important part of making elections transparent, trackable, and publicly verified. But more important is to take away the impunity of a hacker, because hackers don't want to get caught. They don't. That's why they're destroying this stuff. That's why I'm running around the country. They say, why are you saving? Why would I save those? I have the originals. Well, it's because it's the law. That's why. And those, by the way, are public records. And we need to be able to get these things. And in some states like Florida, they got great records request laws. And if you get them preserved, and let's say, for example, you can't get them, you should be able to get to a judge and say, Your Honor, this is a very inexpensive thing that we want to do. It's a matter of clicking on a mouse, copying, and moving to another file, and let us have them. Or under your supervision, can we check them? And then have the right to go back and pull a couple. Ballot images can be put online by precinct. That is already happening in certain parts of this country. Madison, Wisconsin's doing it, okay? San Francisco's already committed, I think you told me, Jim, that they're getting ready to do it. And we're working other places, records requests are getting, but we want to see them put online for everybody. Commit your results. Show us that elections are real. That's what we want to do. The solution to a black box is a transparent box. We need publicly verified elections. Anything less is unacceptable. I've learned to unrig a system. You first need to unrig yourself. Realize that you're being fed propaganda. Best-selling author Brene Brown said, vulnerability is the birthplace of trust, love, belonging, and courage. I agree. Be courageous. But when you're courageous, don't be stupid. Okay? And what I mean by that, I teach the 7 C's, you know. I find talented people like this little lady over there, Lynn Bernstein, I consider her daughter, her grandkids, her kids, my grandkids. We talk about the need of the 7 C's: character, capacity, credibility, civility. I can call you bad names real nicely. That's civility. Citizenship, country. But the big C is courage. Courage to stand up. I'm scared every time I get on stage and do this. I get scared when I walk into an election department, how I'll be received. It's not easy. But when I walk in there, I see my children and my grandchildren. I'm there for them. I'm there for that little kid in the back of the room. I'm there for all the future, because I don't see much of the future. When I was in Miami, Florida, in Hollywood, Florida, I took a walk at high tide, and they just raised the street 4 to 6 inches, and there was 2 inches of water on it already. Okay? You know, we do have big problems. This is a big election coming up. We need to be proactive. We don't need sour grapes. Oh, what are you doing? You're just a sore loser. Let's make our claim before the election. Let's go ahead and go after it, because at the end of my life, I know that I'm going to do everything I can to say that I tried. And I want other people to join me. And you got to have love in your heart to do the work that I do, because the stress is terrible. It really is. And so I believe that saving the world should be fun. Okay? Because if we don't, we're in trouble. Thank you very much. Transparency is the solution. Thank you. Y'all have a whole deal to walk. We need it done.
You can ask John questions there, but there's good food back there. And we'll see you back in the next one.
Right, ask John questions at lunchtime.
That's right, you certainly can. Thank you very much, and thank you for all being here. I'm proud to be here.